let's talk about calculating the percentage composition of hydrated compounds. So this is just basically, if you like, a subset of what we've already been doing. Some of our compounds can be hydrated. What that means is that water molecules fit into the gaps between the ions. For example, copper sulfate. So you probably have seen copper sulfate a few times now, and you should recognize that it's blue. Yeah, you've seen it, it's blue. Mm-hmm. Well, pure copper sulfate is actually white. But copper sulfate is normally found in this hydrated form, which is called copper sulfate pentahydrate. Because I've got 5 waters for every, the ratio of atoms is 1 copper to 5 waters, etc. Okay, so this is actually copper sulfate pentahydrate. We can heat up the copper sulfate pentahydrate and drive the water molecules out of the lattice, and we would end up then with white copper sulfate remaining. Now, for our questions that we do, if it tells us we're using copper sulfate, we're just going to write this. We're not going to worry about the complication that in actual fact, if we were doing it as an experiment, we would be using the pentahydrate. Okay, so don't overcomplicate what you already know about the things that we've done. The times when you need to include the water, it will be specified in the question. Okay, so don't worry about adding it in if it's not there. Now, the best way to do these sorts of questions is to treat these separately. So I wouldn't go through and work out the molar mass of copper sulfate pentahydrate all in one go, because oftentimes, if it's not the first part of the question, the second part of the question would be to then determine the percentage water. And that would mean that you have to go back again and calculate this mass again. It's just easier if you do them separately to start with. Okay, so if we work out the mass, the molar mass of the copper sulfate, which has already been done in the example here, we can see that it's 159.6 grams per mole. And the water is what's that going to be? 18. What's the water? 18 point. Oh, it's actually just done as 5 lots. It's 90.08 grams per mole. And so if we then work out the percentage water, it's going to be this divided by these two added together. Times 100. Which gives us 36.1%. So by far, the most common question is the percent water in a hydrated compound. The next most common question would be to, for example, find the percent copper in this, and then to find the percent water. So to have to find 2. Yeah. But it would be unusual for you to, but not unknown, that you could potentially also be asked, say, something like to find the percent oxygen in it. In which case, you're going to need to remember that you've got 5 oxygens there for the pentahydrate, along with the 4 oxygens and the sulfate. Does that make sense? It's just a matter of finding all of the things that you're looking for, but to try and read the question and how can you make it a fairly simple calculation to do, so that you don't have to go back and recalculate something later on. Okay, so this means that you can now continue on and do question 35 if you haven't already started.